Hi everyone and welcome to the Empowered You podcast. I'm Javi Israel, your host, speaking to you from Sydney, Australia. After October 7, I found myself in uncomfortable situations, not sure how to respond or navigate. That's why I created the Empowered You, first an organization and now a podcast to equip you with the knowledge, skills and tools surrounding Israel and your Jewish identity. In each episode, we'll explore various topics from multiple perspectives so that you can feel informed, empowered, and proud of who you are. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Hello, Sharon.
Hi, Javi. Lovely to be here with you.
I know, lovely to finally be able to catch you. I feel like your schedule is so busy, and I'm interested in hearing why it has been so busy. But before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background?
Okay, so I am a registered nurse and a registered midwife. I am not practicing, so my registration is a non-practicing nurse and midwife, but I am doing a PhD in the field, so that has kept me busy for the last good few years, closer to a decade. I'm nearly done though. I was born in Sri Lanka and moved to Melbourne just 2 weeks before my 5th birthday. And then my parents moved us all back to Sri Lanka for a couple of years while they were building a church there. And then we came back to Sydney where I did my high school years and uni and have stayed here. And now I am a mom of 3. 2 of them are my beautiful stepchildren who live with us. And I have a dog, a cat, and a husband.
So you definitely have your hands full.
Yes, definitely do.
Amazing. And it's interesting. So you said that your parents went back to Sri Lanka to build a church. So is your dad a priest or a pastor?
Yeah. My dad is a pastor. He's retired now, but he has been a pastor ever since I can remember. He was ordained as a reverend in the Wesleyan Methodist Church when I was a little girl. So it has been my upbringing. It's been, that's my religion. So I'm a Christian. That's kind of the values and the faith that I was raised with.
And I'm just curious because obviously you are not Jewish. Did you grow up with an awareness of Jews or of Israel? I know that you lived in Australia, but then also in Sri Lanka. I'm not sure, do Christians in Sri Lanka, do they grow up with an awareness of Jews in Israel?
Look, I grew up with a very strong awareness of Israel and Jews and the Jewish people, and because obviously the Torah is the Old Testament in our Bible. So it's always been something very central to my life and very important. You know, Israel is my holy land as well. So I've been there actually and, walked the steps of Jesus and seen all the important sites. I felt very connected to the land of Israel because of my faith. I knew there were Jewish people here, but it was always Israel. That was where the Jews were. And Christians in Sri Lanka, they are a minority still. The majority, the predominant religion there is Buddhism, and then Buddhism, Hindu, and Muslim is also there, and Christians and Catholics. So I wasn't prepared for it, but when I went to Sri Lanka 2 years ago with my Israeli Jewish husband and introduced him to all my extended family, it was really interesting to see how they treated Renan. Like, they treated him like a king, and my uncles were saying, wow, I'm so excited to meet a real Jew. And, they were just fascinated, and just the Christians there are quite very supportive of Israel. When was this? Early 2023. We went in January, and I didn't realize until I saw it, my uncles, my aunties, my cousins, they all, every time they pray before a meal, they pray for Israel. They pray for the leaders of Israel. They pray for the Jewish people. So they have the Israeli flags in their homes. So it was a bit different for me. Renan was seen as someone quite special, and my uncles were saying, "Oh, thank you. You've brought a Jewish person into our family now." And they were so so excited. And that was a bit, it was interesting. I can't think of another word, but interesting.
And probably a bit of an eye-opener for you, because you obviously grew up really in Australia. And for you, I mean, I'm not sure if you did know Jews growing up. Maybe you didn't, maybe only later on in life.
Yeah.
But we grew up in a very multicultural, diverse space where we interact with other people, and we're like, oh yeah, you're Muslim or you're Hindu or you're Buddhist or you're Jewish, whatever. But they were so excited to actually meet a Jew, because I don't know how many Jews there are in Sri Lanka.
There aren't any now, but I was interested in this topic as well. So I did a bit of reading and didn't realize until I researched that there was a synagogue there in a place called Gaul. And there were some German Jews who escaped the Holocaust and did move out to Sri Lanka, and they were quite well received. Just from what I've read, they were well received and embraced and protected in that community there, the Sri Lankans there. So there were some Jewish people there, and they intermarried. But I don't think there are any left now. But yeah, that was interesting to read that, my country was a bit of a safe place for Jews after the Holocaust. So I was happy about that. Like growing up for me in primary school, high school, I didn't know any Jews, and not that I knew of, right? I didn't know, I hadn't met any. I went to uni with a few Jewish people who are still my friends, nurses and midwives now. We're talking 20 years ago, but I never thought it was just, yeah, okay, they're a Jew, there's a Hindu, there's a Muslim, it was never really anything I thought different. It was just, this is a multicultural country. I knew the word anti-Semitism. I only knew that it was something from the textbooks. I thought this was, a Hitler thing, and it's gone, and, it's gone and died with Hitler and the Holocaust and World War II, and this is not something that will ever come up. Or I never thought it could be something in present day Australia. I always thought it was something of the past. So when October 7th, well, no, not even October 7th, when October 9th happened in Australia, that was a real blow. That was a real shock to my understanding of just how bad and how real anti-Semitism is, and how much it is still a problem today. And I wasn't aware of that. I wasn't aware that it's a modern day problem that we had to even think of it or address.
Before we get into that, because now I'm just getting really curious, because you obviously didn't grow up really around Jews, and now you are married to a Jewish Israeli.
Yeah.
Did you guys meet later on? Like, now I'm just curious, like, how, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, but how, I'm sure you never thought in your wildest dreams that you would be married to a Jew and to an Israeli.
I mean, it's not even something it wasn't even a thing to think. I mean, okay, this is my second marriage, and, my very last marriage. I'm not doing this again. I was fortunate to be able to be given a second chance with Renan, and, my first marriage was to a half Australian, half French man, and he's my son's father. When that marriage ended, and, when I met Renan, I never even thought of it, marrying a Jew or not a Jew. It was just marrying someone, right? Finding a partner. And he just so happened to be a Jewish person. I didn't have any preconceived ideas or expectations. Actually, the only thing that I had expected or thought of was, I remember someone told me, Jewish men just love their mums. They just adore their mums. And I always knew if a man loves his mum and treats his mum well, then, he's generally going to be a good husband to you. So that was kind of the only thing in my head when I was thinking of a future partner in terms of Jewishness. Never even crossed my mind.
You just fell in love.
Yeah.
And then you were like, oh, you happen to be Israeli. You happen to be a Jew. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So when did you really start? Because you have a pretty large following on social media, and you have been a voice, and I want to hear everything that you have done, that you are doing for the Jewish community, especially in the healthcare space. When did you start investing yourself in being an advocate and an activist for the Jewish community?
I mean, my social media platform has shrunk quite a bit since October 7th. It was, I think, it was at 16,000 or something. So it's gone down quite a bit. I was already an advocate in the maternity care space. Like for many years, I was raising awareness of birth trauma and doing work in that space. I've written a book about my own traumatic birth experience, and I was doing a lot of talks and education and things like that in the maternity care space. And then getting into birth trauma, I started incorporating anti-racism work or just cultural sensitivity awareness in maternity care. And this was before October 7th, because I'm a migrant and I have brown skin. Visually, you can see I look different. And the research was also telling us that women of colour, women from culturally diverse backgrounds, have lower satisfaction with maternity care and higher birth trauma rates, and the causes of that being, disrespectful maternity care. So I was bringing that into my advocacy and doing that. And actually on the 9th of October, the day when the Opera House, when that horrific thing took place at the Opera House, on that morning, I was in Parliament giving evidence at the New South Wales birth trauma trial, and I was talking about racism in maternity care as a cause of birth trauma for women of colour and different, culturally different. And then when things started to heat up with the anti-Semitism, and because I did have that platform in the maternity space, I quite early on, maybe November, I was starting to get messages from Jewish midwives privately messaging me about what's going on in their workplace. And then I was thinking, oh my gosh, what on earth is happening here? And there was all sorts of stories of being told they can't work with this person, or being told, oh, now we know you're a Zionist, we don't want to talk to you, or just being completely excluded, isolated, having colleagues turning up to work with kefirs or watermelon pins. And then I started getting messages from pregnant women all over, like not just from the eastern suburbs where we live, just all over the country. Sharon, it started off with Jewish pregnant women. Oh, I'm going to be birthing here. I'm really anxious. Are there any Jewish staff here, Jewish midwives? So then I'd connect them up with, I'd do a call out and find, if there was people that they could connect with. Same thing for staff. And then, I had non-Jewish people write to me saying, I don't like what's happening. I feel unsafe, and it was a real problem. And I started using my platform. I kept talking about maternity care and healthcare, but I included anti-Semitism because it was obviously very much an issue that no one was listening to, no one in terms of people in positions of power with regulation and policy like AHPRA or politicians. So I started doing videos and reels, and then I connected, like those marches, the protests that nurses and doctors were going to in New South Wales health uniform, chanting those Hamas slogans. Like I was trying, and I had two Instagram pages at the time. I had the one that we're talking about now, and I had another one which had over 100,000, which I was using for my book and midwifery kind of stuff. And I have a lot of people in the birth world following those accounts. And I started to get a lot of pushback, a lot of abuse, a lot of disappointed comments. I followed you for this, always loved your work, your content and the stuff you were doing in the maternity care space, but I'm so disappointed and shocked. So I connected with the woman who runs Feminists Against Anti-Semitism. Her name's Elise, and she is an Australian married to an Israeli as well who lives in another country. And we met up online, did some video calls and thought, you know what, we need to do something here because no one's doing anything. So quite early on, I think it was November or December, we tried to form a group called Anti-Racism Australia. We had some Jewish women as well on the committee. We tried to get this going. We emailed AHPRA, emailed other organisations saying this is happening. We even make calls. Can you send out letters to all the registered practitioners saying this chant is a very dangerous chant and this is what it means and this is how it makes the Jewish people feel, and no response from AHPRA. But then as Elise and I were amping up what we were saying and doing and making reports and writing letters, we found a lot of the large pro-Palestine community really hated it. And then I started getting complaints, one after the other, to AHPRA, right? And then Laura Alarm came after me online.
Just before we get to all of that, because you have shared so much, and it's amazing, and you are amazing. But I just want to take a step back. So you were saying that first, midwives and healthcare professionals, I'm assuming, so also nurses or people within the healthcare space, even doctors. First, these Jewish healthcare professionals were reaching out to you saying that they don't feel comfortable in the workspaces that they were in. So that was I know a psychiatrist, and obviously she will be not named, but she went through psychiatry with a whole group of people, had a whole bunch of friends from work, and then post October 7, they actually completely abandoned her. They exited her from their WhatsApp group that she was on with them, and they just basically completely snubbed her. And she had been friends with these women for years. They had gone through school together. They worked in the same hospital. They had gone through so much, and night shifts and all those things. And then boom, they just dumped her because she was a Jew and she supported Israel. She wasn't even that vocal about it. She doesn't even wear a Magen David at work. She's a doctor. And so I know about one doctor. So you're telling me that there were, I don't know if you have numbers or figures, but were you shocked with how many healthcare professionals were reaching out to you?
I was really shocked because what you're telling me is pretty much the same story that almost every Jewish healthcare worker I know has experienced. I don't have numbers, but it's a lot. That so many Jewish doctors, nurses, and midwives I know have lost friends. They have lost colleagues. They've been abandoned, they've been excluded, they've been kicked out of groups, isolated, disowned from their communities that they were once very much a part of. And it has been very sad to see and hear these stories. It's really shocking and disappointing. I've probably got only 4 friends, 4 pre-October 7th friends that are still my friends today who are not Jewish people. That is, what I've had to deal with, because even my closest friends who've been there for me through every hardship I've gone through, and then the moment, I refused to call for a ceasefire, but instead I said release the hostages. That was a big point of contention for many. Some quietly unfriended me, some quietly stopped talking to me, some very vocally unfriended me online and abused, harassed, and interrogated me. And I'm not Jewish. It was purely because I was saying no to anti-Semitism that it became a problem. But what I saw quite early on, and what a lot of Jewish healthcare workers were telling me, was that their colleagues, their own colleagues, were posting quite horrific things online on their social media. Yes, they might not have been, vocally saying all sorts of racist things at work, but they were posting it online. And then those thought processes, the messages they were posting online was then reflecting in how they treated the Jewish colleagues at work, or how they excluded them. So it was a very strange thing to witness. And it kind of really shows how online world is very real. I know I've heard quite early on when all this online hatred was coming up against the Jewish people. I know there were quite a few prominent people saying it's the online world, it's not real, but as we've seen, the online world has very much become real thing. You just have to look at this Facebook group called Medical Mums and Mums to Be, or Australian New Zealand Doctors for Palestine. These Facebook groups, they're private groups, but with thousands of members in it. And it starts with a few anti-Semitic comments about Zionists, not Jews, Zionists. And, and then it progressed, unchecked, allowing this environment, this sense of freedom to flourish, hatred to flourish, where they were then able to write all sorts of comments like praising the Netherlands for the pogroms, like outright praising that, saying, I love the Netherlands. That was in the Australian paper, actually. And then Zionism is a mental illness. And then that for the last 18 months, these doctors have been allowed to express these views with no consequences. It's become normalized now.
The online world, we think, oh, it's these online trolls, but behind these online people are real people, just like me and you are online. We're real people with real thoughts and real feelings. And actually, these thousands of people are not just these online trolls that we maybe paint them out to be. They're real humans who have families, who have jobs, professions, who are a part of society, who who vote. They're just normal human beings like me and you, and they have these really dangerous, dark theories about Jews. And I know I'm saying Jews, even though they use the word Zionist, but 95% of Jews are Zionists.
Exactly.
We believe that Jewish people have the right to their ancestral homeland.
100%. Yep.
So
100%.
So you're telling me that there were loads of healthcare professionals who feed into these ideas, who are still working, obviously, as Australian healthcare professionals, and you're one of the only people who actively were actually doing something about this and exposing them and taking them to organizations like AHPRA.
Not one of the only people. Certainly not, right? So I think I was the only non-Jewish person in the maternity care space speaking out about this. In Australia, I haven't come across anyone else quite as outspoken as I have been. And even in global midwifery and midwifery academia, it's mostly been very much geared towards Palestine and Gaza, as opposed to any consideration of the anti-Semitism that Jewish women in the maternity space might be feeling, or Jewish staff. So, but in terms of everyone else who's been doing work, there's been some really hard-working doctors that I've been connected with since about November or December 23, and they've been doing a lot of work as well, trying really hard. I joined this small group back then, and we had some meetings with AHPRA. AHPRA is the body that regulates registered health practitioners. So you've got nurses, doctors, midwives, pharmacists, physiotherapists, all sorts of other registered practitioners, dentists, things like that. So they regulate it, and they've got a code of conduct. They've got the practitioners are meant to abide by. They correspond with all the boards, and they investigate misconduct and things like that. So AHPRA was our go-to. I can't mention the names of the doctors. There is one I can mention, and because she's been on the Shari show, Dr. Jackie Rakov. She's done a lot of work as well. She coordinated a letter to AHPRA and all the ministers and to government, and it was co-signed by hundreds of Jewish doctors with explicit examples of what their colleagues were posting online. And as we probably all know, that document was not acknowledged or addressed or actioned like it should have been. And if it was taken seriously back then, we wouldn't be where we are today in healthcare, I think. So there are other people who have been working really hard behind the scenes, trying to get these regulatory bodies to listen, to do something. In the meetings we had with AHPRA, we got nowhere. We asked them just to adopt the AHPRA definition of anti-Semitism and add it to the existing code of conduct, which is explicit about racism. It's just adding this one extra word. They wouldn't do it. And, it was quite disappointing because from very early on, we had GPs publicly quoting Hitler on their social medias. And AHPRA did nothing about it. Yeah, actually, I personally submitted a complaint about that, and that was dismissed. Then we had doctors on their public pages posting images of the swastika superimposed over the Star of David dripping with blood. That's hate speech, as far as I'm concerned. That's hate speech in the form of an image. It was dismissed. I know several people have complained about that post, and AHPRA dismissed that. All sorts of disgusting behaviour, disgusting posts have been dismissed by AHPRA. But they have gone the other way, where, like you mentioned, the people online posting these things have turned around and sent in complaints, vexatious complaints about myself and other Jewish healthcare workers. Really awful complaints, purely because they are raising awareness of anti-Semitism, or they are saying this is anti-Semitic, or all nonsense reasons. And AHPRA have dealt with those cases very differently compared to how they've dealt with reports of anti-Semitism. So this is what we were up against all this time.
A lot of double standards going on.
Exactly the word, double standards. Double standards, hypocrisy. And I suppose what's really important for the public to know is that, on the board, you've got Professor Ari Freiberg, who is publicly known. He's known publicly to be an anti-Zionist, and he's been mentioned in newspaper articles from, I think, 2007 and 2014 in his work against the Jewish lobby, or the Zionist lobby, I think it is.
And he's a Jewish doctor, I'm assuming, based on his name.
Yep, he's not a doctor, because I don't think doctors can be on the board. He's a professor, and he's got all these, accolades next to his name, and he's on the board of AHPRA. And if you look him up on the AHPRA website, he's there. And then if you Google his name, you'll find the articles that show that he's publicly declared his political opinions. And then you've got Marie Bismarck, who is one of the advisors to AHPRA, and she has signed an anti-Semitic petition as well. RANZCP, there was a petition to them, and her name's on that petition. So there's all sorts of things in AHPRA that anecdotally explain why AHPRA, or could possibly explain why AHPRA has taken this stance in, punishing those calling out anti-Semitism as opposed to addressing the anti-Semitic doctors or the healthcare workers, Like just the other day, I posted a video on my Instagram. I covered the identity, but a doctor in Melbourne sent me this video. She had been screen recording from her Instagram of a public Instagram page of a nurse that she knew who had worked in a certain hospital. She no longer works in that hospital, but she's a registered nurse. And that video that the doctor screen recorded was of the nurse at a protest calling out to Jews, calling them dirty Zionist, some explicit words that I don't even want to say on this podcast, but really disgusting, pointing them out, live streaming it, and that was sent to AHPRA, and the complaint was sent. AHPRA dismissed it, And we know AHPRA dismissed it because that complaint, the outcome letter, was posted onto the public page of that nurse. So the nurse gloated and bragged about how these AHPRA dismissed this complaint about me at the protest, and with some awful message to the Zionist who reported her. And it's a public post. So, we've got clear as day hate speech, racist hate speech, which has been dismissed by AHPRA as of not requiring any further action.
It's very disappointing, very, especially in Australia. You would expect better, and you would expect that everyone should try and be as objective as they can be. Just like
Yep.
we're all, for us, we're not saying that people need to love Israel. They don't need to love Zionists, but hate speech should not be acceptable. And when you are so obvious and explicit and you post it on your social media, on public, and it's out in the open, it should not be tolerated. And I also know from personal perspectives, my husband is a healthcare professional, and even actually before October the 7th, he is a Jewish male, and his last name is Israel. And I won't say details, but he has had a few incidents as well with regards to his Jewish identity before October 7th.
So that's the thing, 100% racism, right? I just feel that there has been such double standards in the way regulators have been addressing this issue. And I think we've got some major problems, because if schools have already got rid of Holocaust education, people are only going to know about Jews from the stereotypes that's circulating, especially in the wider part of Sydney. So Western Sydney, they don't know. They haven't come across Jews. They don't. And if they have, those Jews have probably kept it to themselves that they're Jewish. So people aren't exposed to Jewish culture and beliefs and ways of life and history anymore. So if that's not addressed, the only thing that's going to keep circulating are the anti-Semitic tropes about Jews, perpetuating hate and fear and anger and jealousy and outright hatred.
Does AHPRA, though, take, let's say, complaints from patients? Because it's one thing they might think, these healthcare professionals, maybe they're over exaggerating and maybe they don't feel comfortable in their work environment. But does AHPRA take more seriously patients who have come to AHPRA and filed a complaint and said, my healthcare professional, because you mentioned how then you are having Jewish people who are going through the Australian healthcare system who weren't feeling comfortable, or maybe they just weren't feeling comfortable. But I assume, did you have any actual incidents that were quite serious that needed to be reported? Does AHPRA take, from a patient's perspective, do they take that more serious?
They do take from a patient's perspective. And I watched one of the Senate estimates when the CEO of AHPRA, Kim Askoff, said that AHPRA's main role is for the protection of the public. Now, that would tell me that any complaints from the public, whether they're patient or just a member of the public, would and should be taken seriously. And I know that some people in the public have complained about the doctors who have public profiles posting things like this, because that is part of their professional practice, their professional profile and who they are, what they give out to the world to show that that's them as a doctor. Now, I have not come across a case where AHPRA has responded to any of those in the way that we would have liked. And in terms of patients or members of the public who have experienced anti-Semitism and told me about it, they've been very reluctant to report it out of fear, concerns for their safety, concerns for their name being let out. No, there was one person who reported a doctor for a horrific social media post, and the next thing, that person received death threats by someone else on social media. So it was very clear to me what had happened there, but that's a scary thing. So you've got you've got all these factors to think about when you submit a complaint. And from what we've been seeing in protests, in that video with the 2 Bankstown nurses, the freedom that these people have to openly spew anti-Semitic hate, there's no telling what they would actually do in person. And this is the fears that people are communicating to me. This is what they're telling me. I've had a lot of reporters wanting to speak to Jewish pregnant women, Jewish workers, but overwhelmingly these people are afraid to speak to the reporters because of fear, because of concern for their safety. And I don't blame them. It's a real serious issue here that we've got.
Yeah, definitely concerns to their safety. And also it's just so uncomfortable. I mean, I had now personally an uncomfortable experience with a midwife. And I didn't do anything about it for a while because I felt like, firstly, I didn't want to offend her. I was so scared of offending this midwife. Meanwhile, I, as a patient, was not feeling comfortable. And then I also felt like I had no ground to kind of even base my uncomfortableness. There were a few things that gave it away. I mean, my last name is Israel, and that midwife made a comment about that, and a negative comment like, oh, Israel's pretty contentious. And then with the Bankstown nurses, I was just really shocked. And I had a midwife appointment that morning, and I said, did you see what happened? And the midwife was like, oh, I don't believe social media. And completely, I mean, I guess maybe she didn't want to engage because it was a political conversation. I don't know. But the midwife was like, oh, well, if it's real, we'll see it on the news. And then proceeded to say how they just want peace, as if like insinuating that, as if like Israel doesn't want peace. And like, it was just so. But then I also felt like maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'm just being a bit crazy. Maybe, I mean, there were other things that I just did not feel comfortable with that midwife as well. But it took me, it was like really courageous to even just call up and ask if I can change midwives. And I didn't even say the Jewish reasons, because I felt like, well, I'm getting these vibes, but I didn't have anything to back the feelings that I was getting. Even for me, in my personal experience, I felt these energies, but there's nothing that I can go and report because there was nothing really to report. It's the vibe. I know that sounds, and people are like, well, the vibe, maybe it's a thing.
It's definitely,
but it really is the vibe.
It's a vibe, and this is the problem. It's very hard to prove anti-Semitism because it's very subtle and it's nuanced, or it can be subtle and nuanced, but it's not. It's very easy for the other side to defend and say, oh, I didn't mean it like this. It wasn't meant to come off as that. And until I just think it's not right that the patients, I don't think it's a responsibility of the patients and the community to have to fight this. I think it needs to come from a top-down approach, because it's very clear we have a problem. It's very clear we have a problem. And I know I know that people have biases. They have preconceived ideas. I get it. We all do. We all view the world from different lenses, right? But it's one thing to have biases, but it's another thing to freely spew that out to the world. Freely let it come out unrestrained, without any concerns or fears or thoughts for how it's going to impact anyone. I mean, in healthcare, we are supposed to leave our biases at the door. That is how healthcare is supposed to be practiced. In any field, you are not meant to bring your personal biases, your personal preconceived ideas into patient care. But it happens every day. But now with the social media, it's just, people have lost any self-control in managing or controlling those biases. We're not going to change people's minds. We're not going to, these Jew haters, these Israel haters, you might not be able to get them to stop thinking that way, but they need to have some kind of control. Like, the thing with the Bankstown nurses that shocked me the most was not what they said, but the fact that they said that on a public platform. I thought, are they stupid to air their views, these such disgusting views, out there in public? That's the only thing that shocked me, that two educated registered nurses did not have the intelligence to keep it to themselves what they really thought. Because do you know what I mean? Like, it's disgusting what they thought. It's disgusting what they said. But I would have thought that they had some kind of sense to, like, have a filter. Come on, like, filter your mouth before you speak. I wasn't surprised by what they said, and that if they'd already been doing what they've been claiming to do. I wasn't surprised because our government, our management, has allowed this to continue, this unrestrained Jew hatred, these Hamas slogans have been aired out so publicly for so long that it's been normalized to a sense that it's okay to have these thoughts. It's normal to think that way, and it's also normal to let it out and to speak it. Whereas it very much is not normal, but we've allowed it to happen. So I don't know how the government is going to contain that and pull that back again, because we have had so many openly share their hatred of Jews and Israel. And maybe in a sense, okay, now at least we know what we're dealing with, but I don't know what to say. It's been a really eye-opening, disgusting, shocking time.
And have you found that this is happening across the world? I don't know if you've connected with healthcare professionals like in other parts of the world, but is this like a worldwide problem, or do you reckon this is specifically within Australia? I mean, you might not be able to comment on that within the healthcare space.
So I follow that account, Physicians Against Anti-Semitism, and I've been chatting to the admin there, and it looks like they've got the same problem there for sure. I mean, as far as I'm aware, they haven't had any two dingbats like the two Bankstown nurses, say something quite explicit like that. But I know they've got the same problem there because I keep seeing posts about it. I've had other nurses and midwives from, around the world share some of what's been going on in their spaces. There is a Jewish midwife in the UK who's been trying to lead the fight against anti-Semitism there, and she's been experiencing so much of what we've been experiencing here in maternity care, at least. So I think it's definitely global. I think the media has a lot to do with that by highlighting the deaths, highlighting what's going on in Gaza, but totally failing to show the plight of the hostages, what happened on the 7th, the horrific acts of Hamas on the 7th. I think that has had a big impact on how, I think, I can't speak for all sectors, but for healthcare at least, how they have responded, and seeing images of innocent children with limbs gone and blood and stories about pregnant women having cesareans without anesthetics, whether that's true or not. That kind of narrative plays on the heartstrings of healthcare workers, because that is what we do. We try to stop suffering. We don't want to see people suffering. We go into healthcare to help people, to heal people. So when you see images of that, you can kind of understand why they've turned against Israel and then by default extended that to their Jewish colleagues. I mean, that there's been a serious lack of self-awareness in a lot of these people who have done that, because they've failed to see the difference between what's happening in the war there and what's happening here in Australian hospitals, and that's what I've been trying to say. I've been trying to say, hey, look, yes, what's happening there is awful. There's innocent deaths everywhere, okay? But there's also many other wars around the world and actual genocides, not fake genocides, real genocides going on, right? But there's no spotlight on them. I've been saying, can we leave the war to a side and look at what's happening in our hospitals here, because this is where you work. I'm not saying leave, don't have empathy or sympathy for anything outside Australia, but hey, we need to focus on our healthcare system because we're crashing too. We've got big issues in this country, and we can't let what's happening outside this country impact on the health-seeking behaviour of a group of a minority group in Australia. Like, we're now getting Jewish people who are afraid to access basic medical care. I've had people message me, Jewish people, saying, I would rather die at home from a heart attack than call an ambulance and not know who's going to be treating me. And this is the reality. It will impact health seeking behavior of this group, of the Jewish community. We should not be allowing what's happening out there and our feelings about that to impact the healthcare in this country. That's all I've been saying. Address the problems here, can we, in maternity? But that's been misconstrued by all the people who are against Israel. I've been labelled a traitor because I'm brown. So because I'm brown, I should therefore be talking only about Gaza, not the white colonizers, because Israel and Jews are white colonizers, and because this is what they say, and because I am clearly, by aligning myself with the Jewish people, I am a white supremacist with internalized racism and self-hatred. And I am a genocide supporter. That is what I have received and been labelled with since speaking up about anti-Semitism in maternity care.
It's absolutely appalling, and I'm so sorry that you've had to experience that. And the whole thing is just...
It's just one big sorry, isn't it? Like, it's just
one big sorry. I'm sorry for everyone, but you are entirely right. When whatever's going on, in the Middle East, that's one thing, and it should not be impacting the way we operate here within Australia. We are supposed to be an accepting, tolerant, embracive, multicultural society. And I know that as a Jew, I really try and live up to those values all the time. And it's not easy for me either now in this territory that I live in. If I see someone else, sometimes I'm like, are they my friend? Are they not my friend? Do I stand with them? But I really try and not have those feelings, because I know that I want people to be tolerant and accepting and embracing of me. And I really try and have that for everybody, for everyone, every human being that I meet. I believe is created in the image of God and is a good person. And I really believe in humanity, but it's just so shocking and upsetting, this whole situation, and how the governing bodies haven't really been doing that much, it seems, and they haven't really been taking it seriously. And the backlash that you have received, and that Jewish people don't feel safe or comfortable. I know that I'm, please God, having a baby, and I was thinking, can I play Israeli music if I want as a background? That was a thought that I had.
absolutely.
Like, I don't feel, not that that's the biggest deal, but I was like, it's been a thought. Like, do I even feel comfortable playing Israeli music? It's ridiculous, because it's my birthing experience, and if I want to play what music I want to play. But that's something that I've been thinking about. Crazy. These are real thoughts.
And it wouldn't have been a thought 5 years ago.
No.
You wouldn't have even thought of it.
No. And that's really sad, actually.
That's right. It's very much a real thought. I've not put anything in any abstract submissions in for conferences, because I don't know who's looking at them. I just don't know. The thought of, I don't even want to go to these things anymore, because are people going to shout at me? What's going to happen? Yeah, it's been quite an interesting time, and I certainly think the government is to blame for allowing the floodgates of anti-Semitism to open on the 9th of October. That was the day it all started. And had they taken action on that day, or action, then I don't think we'd be in this place like we're in today. Because burning the flag, whether it's Israeli or Aboriginal or anything, any other country, is wrong. Right? So I just think if that had been an Aboriginal flag, how would the government have reacted? And I think they would have reacted very differently. And the fact that they didn't react in that way when the Israeli flag was burnt was really telling of the people that we have in positions of power. And I think it's very sad that Australia has become what it's become. Yeah, because of the lack of action.
Well, we have elections that are coming up, so I'm curious to know if you think that maybe with a different, prime minister in place, if you think that things will improve. And I also want to know what hope do you have for the future? And do you think that the situation can get better? I know.
I have always been a Labor supporter, so I'll just be outright clear. When I had the option to choose, I was a Labor supporter. My whole adult life, I chose Labor because that was the party that was who you chose if you were a migrant, if you were a person of colour in the working class, West, in Sydney's West, if you were a nurse, a midwife, was the group that focused on what the issues that were important to me. My community, my parents were always heavily involved in the local Labor election days. And when I had a choice, I chose Labor. Now I feel like I don't have the luxury to choose whether healthcare or education or the roads or social justice projects are important. I don't have that luxury. This is my opinion. I don't feel I have that luxury anymore to choose. I feel there is no more choice. I feel that, once you lose your choice, it's no longer a democracy, right? So I feel like I have to choose based on what is most important for the safety of my children, as opposed to the topics that are important to me. So I feel like I have to put safety above other important topics that I would have otherwise voted on. Right? So already I don't have a choice and I have to choose Liberal because I feel that is the only way we are going to get on top of these hate crimes, this disgusting anti-Semitism happening, and this extremist rhetoric that's coming out in our society. I feel that that's the only way for safety and protection. And we live in Australia and it shouldn't even have to be a concern. Safety and protection shouldn't have to come into my thinking and factor in who I'm going to vote for. I don't feel this is a democracy anymore. I don't feel I'm choosing Liberal out of choice. I'm choosing Liberal out of safety. So it suddenly almost feels like a developing country as opposed to the Australia that I know.
It's interesting how you phrase it like that, because I really resonate with what you're saying. Like, I'm not really involved in politics, as in naturally growing up in my little Jewish community. I guess everyone was always liberal, very liberal. And I just follow the crowd, like, as in I just voted because I had to vote, but it never meant something to me. And now it's interesting because, my husband's a healthcare professional and I'm a teacher. And I actually think that if I were to vote now, I think I would vote Labor, as in, well, not now, but now that I'm
If
actually...
safety wasn't an issue, I also would vote Labor still too.
And it aligns, I think, with my values more.
Yeah.
But now I have to be focused on, like you said, the safety of myself, my community, my children, and also my land, my country, Israel.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need the current government voting against my country in the United Nations, which happened.
Yep.
I need that the Israeli prime minister should be able to enter Australia and not be arrested. Like,
100%.
for me, I've had to become so, I guess, Jew-centric. I don't know if that's the right word. I've had to become focused on my people and my community. It's not a choice anymore. There's no choice. I can't have the current government. Look what's happened to my community and my people and my country under this current government, which is a Labor government. And I actually worry about the future of my children if Labor wins again. And so for me, it's not even a choice. I have to vote Liberal.
100%. That's how I think too. If October 7th hadn't happened, I would have voted Labor again. It's been very much an interesting time to see these events unfold and to watch things go unchecked. And I always wondered, how did the Holocaust happen? I mean, how could you just one day have 6 million Jews killed like that, and society watch? And watching the unfolding of events over the last 18 months, I think this is how it would have started. It would have started like this, and things being unchecked, things being left to flourish, hate being left to flourish. Just, it worries me that if we don't get a change of government, it worries me what the next 4 years will be like. So I am really praying that we have a change of government. I'm not a fan of Peter Dutton. I never have been. But I am a fan now because I need safety. My children need safety. This community needs safety. So, yes, I will put my vote in for him. That's just how, even my parents, that's just how things have to be right now. So let's hope and pray things change. So,
And what hope do you have for the future? Do you have hope for the Australian healthcare profession?
I do have hope for the Australian healthcare profession. I think if this government continues, I have no hope. If we have a change, I have a lot of hope. Yes, I do feel like our concerns have been falling on deaf ears in healthcare at the moment. I think it will take a lot of hard work from within the Jewish community, but also outside, the non-Jewish people who are against the extremism that we've been seeing. I think they really need to step up and start speaking and doing things and saying this is not okay. And I think we need policy changes, but we need action. I think if hospitals start to take this seriously and start to implement cultural sensitivity training. I know we've done a good job in implementing that training for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, cultural training, but we need to do it for Jewish cultures, because I think the only way we're going to, we need to have anti-Semitism training in hospitals, and not just hospitals, in education centres like unis and high schools. I think if we can get that happening, I think there's certainly a chance of turning the tide. I think we have hope to restore our healthcare system to at least what it was before October 7th. But I think there needs to be a lot of work done to get there for me to say I have hope in a better healthcare system that's free of racism and anti-Semitism.
Yeah, I agree.
think we lifted the lid, like the cat's out of the bag. We can see it for what it is now. And I think what we're dealing with is a very big problem. But as long as we have people in positions of power who are ready to say, yes, we need to deal with this, and yes, I will deal with this, let's start, then definitely, yes, I have hope.
But we need the leadership, and we need the education to happen, and it's not happening yet. But we have hope
No.
it will happen, please God.
Yes, please, God.
It's so crazy to even have, that we're sitting, I don't know, what's the date, April 8th? I think it's 8th, 2025. And we are sitting and we are having this conversation in Sydney, Australia. Never in my wildest dreams would I even have thought that such a conversation would even be happening. And I know that some people maybe will be listening to this conversation and think we're being such negative Nancy's and it's all doom and gloom. And obviously, me and you both believe in humanity and that things totally can get better, and please God will get better. And I don't think that everything's all doom and gloom, but I definitely think that it's important to be aware that there is a problem that is going on, and it's not non-existent. And that in our society, if we allow bad behavior to continue, it will fester and it will grow. And
100%.
we have to go hard on bad behavior and say that this is not acceptable in our society. We do not tolerate hate speech for all different groups of people, and not just for Jews, for everyone. And go down hard. And people might have their thoughts. We can't control people's thoughts.
Keep your thoughts to your head.
But
Just
keep
don't
your
let it come out of your mouth or on the keyboard. That's it.
That's it. That's
And just
it.
practice according to your code of conduct. And then you can think, hate, whatever you want, however you want. Just don't act on it, please. Keep it away from us. And that's it.
It sounds really simple, and we've got a lot of work ahead of us, and it's really thanks to people like you, Sharon, really sincerely, because without people like you, I wouldn't feel very comfortable. I mean, I still don't feel entirely comfortable within the healthcare. I'm trying to also just be confident in who I am and not let those negative thoughts impact me and my experience going through the Australian healthcare system. But I really am grateful for people like you who are being true upstanders for the Jewish community here in Australia. And I hate to say it, but we need people like you. And if we didn't have you, I don't know what would be. So as an Australian Jewish person, I would like to thank you for everything that you have done for our community here in Australia. And I know that it's bloody hard work. I know that you have received death threats for this. It has put your personal safety and your family safety at risk. And I know that it is far from easy and it's so easy to give up. So from the bottom of my heart, and I'm sure everyone in my community, we just want to thank you. And we are so grateful to have people like you. And you are a true shining light. So thank you so, so much. And thank you for your time today.
Well, thanks, Javier. I don't know what to say. It's very strange to be thanked for just talking about something that is just so wrong in society. And I'm just sorry that we're in this place right now at this time in history where this is how the world has turned on the Jewish people. And I'm truly sorry for that. And it saddens me deeply to see it.
Well, please God, next time we see each other, we'll only have good news to share with each other and that things will be heading onwards and upwards. And thank you so much again.
Thanks, Javi. Thank you.